Good afternoon, everyone. We want to thank you for taking the time to join this webinar. It's titled The Ripple Effect, Examining Alignment of Program and Organizational Structures to Build Youth Evaluation and Assessment Tools. So we're excited to have Alicia here from Mirror Group, and also Eve is here to provide support from Mirror Group as well. This training will complete a 5-part training series that Mirror Group has led for Elevate Youth California partners. They are also providing coaching for our partners as well. And so if you'd like to connect with them after this call through coaching, we certainly would encourage you to sign up. So at this time, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Alicia to get us started.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Buenas tardes. It is very buenas tardes here because I'm coming to you from Chicago, so we are past the school day over here. But hopefully you're in the right place. As she mentioned the title today, we're here to discuss the ripple effect and the importance and the role of examining alignment of program and organizational structures to help build strong, leading to youth evaluation practices and tools. So we're going to talk about connecting those things today. Quick short disclaimer that EYC is a program of DHCS, and the center is contracted to support the implementation and technical assistance for substance use disorder prevention programs that you all provide. So let's start with, we'll do some introductions. We want to get to know you. I have loved, this is our 5th workshop working with you all, and every single time I've had great engagement. So I'm really excited to do this one today. My name is Alicia Garcia Flores, and I'm a senior evaluation consultant at Mirror Group. We are based in, our Mirror Group LLC is based in Washington, D.C., but we have evaluators across the country and team members. We are focused on evaluation, learning, and strategy consulting firm with clients and also foundations and nonprofits across the United States as well. My background is in nonprofit youth development. Actually, just in the past year, I transitioned over to consulting, but that has been for 20 years, my bread and butter in Chicago mostly, doing youth development programs and evaluation, as well as a focus on community development and urban planning. So I'm very excited to be here. Let me pass it to my colleague, Eve.
Hi, everyone. My name is Eve Coleman. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a senior research and evaluation assistant consultant here at Mirror Group, and I am joining you all today from Richmond, Virginia. And I will be assisting with tech facilitation today.
Thank you, Eve. Now let's get to know you all a little bit better. If you would please do us the kindness. I promise you I'll warn you about the engagement we're doing today. We're hopefully you're ready to contribute in chat and come off mute a little bit. Some of you would love your participation, but go ahead using the chat if you can put your information, your name, title, organization, maybe location if you want, and whether you work directly with youth or not. Are you your role? And we're going to take a look at that chat here. I'm going to pull that up. I think somebody asked about sharing the materials today. We do share, the center shares the recording as well as the resources and the PowerPoint. So don't feel like you have to write down much, just some notes for yourself to be fully present. Let's see who we have people here from. All right, we have a lot of directors, program staff. I see some familiar names from some other presentations and workshops we've had, I think, too. Associate director, yeah, program managers, lots of people running the show on these programs, developing the tools. I see some consulting, okay. Oakland in the house. South Lake Tahoe, okay. That's still a lot of, oh, there's some people who work directly with youth, as well as running, coordinating as well, multi roles. Yay. All right, welcome. Thank you for adding your information in here and introducing yourselves. Los Angeles. Did I say that right? Merced, California? Crystal? Youth Leadership Institute. I love Youth Leadership Institute. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for adding your info.
Okay. So maybe we'll just touch base.
All right. Okay, thank you for adding your information. Look like we have a lot of folks who are directing programs, coordinating programs, some working directly with youth as well and doing evaluation. Love that. So that means we're going to have lots of people with lots of resources and advice while we go through this today. I love it. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. So just a quick group agreement. I'm sure my fellow youth and development folks know what these are. And just to make sure that we give and receive welcome, want to go through some of these, how we'll share this group in this space today. Be as present as fully possible, totally understand. We got things going on in the background sometimes. If I try to keep yourself on mute to avoid that disruption. We really want to invite you in and not demand you into this circle and space. So we hope that you will participate, but participation has multiple levels. So we understand that. Speak your truth in ways that respect each other and other people's truth. Be open to other points of views that might differ from your own and respond to others with honest and open questions. We want to make sure this is a welcoming, safe space, a brave space, because we're going to talk about what we're working on and what tools and what structures we're working on in our programs. So there's no judgment, just really we want to improve and work together and use each other as a resource today. So thank you. Next slide. Okay, we're going to do a quick Mentimeter. Eve, oh, okay, sorry. Yes, you can join the Mentimeter by the instructions on the screen or following this link. And the Mentimeter is asking a question about the main aspects of your program. What are the main aspects of your program that support leadership development and civic engagement? Kind of what shines the most? Give us some open-ended answers, if you would, please. And let us know if you have any trouble with that link, if you. All right, we got some answers coming in, so I know it's working. So supporting leadership development and civic engagement. What shines the most? Inclusivity. Peer mentorship, prioritizing youth voices. Teaching your staff about youth development, youth engagement. Ooh, I love this. Workshops to help youth understand the various levels of civic engagement, then exposing them to those opportunities. That's awesome. A lot of leadership and staff development. Connecting youth to one another. I like that too. That's an important peer-to-peer as well as adult-to-peer relationships, right? Community involvement, engagement. Yes. Adapting youth participatory action research model to meet the priorities and needs of youth and to work alongside youth. Beautiful. A lot of youth-led, youth voice-centered approaches. Love this. I love these ideas too. It's really giving you ideas for structuring your program in that way. Food for Indigenous Futures creates opportunities for local youth to serve in their community with hands-on food sovereignty work. Ooh, That sounds really interesting. Public speaking opportunities, putting their skills at work, youth training other youth and working with them. Love these. Circles and restorative justice practices. Thank you. These are great. Thank you for sharing. We'll take these notes. Oh, actually, looking at youth as experts in implementing their suggestions, not just asking, but really following up. That's so important. And youth see that. And that's a good evaluation practice and tool, right? To bring that data, bring that information back and do something with it. All right. Well, thank you. We're going to pause there and go back to our presentation. I appreciate your contributions. And let's get started into some of the content. Eve is going to drop in the chat our main focus today. We have three main things we're going to talk about. One is building foundations for strong program structures, which leads to really good quality tools. And I say that because I don't know if you've ever been in the position where you've received an evaluation tool or something, you're like, I don't know how this relates to my experience in the program. Or, those questions don't really relate to it. We're going to talk about that a little bit today and how important those structures are to relate. Examples of building aligned evaluation tools from those strong structures, and then using those tools for strong reporting. So we're going to look into some of your actual reporting questions that you have and talk about what we do and what tools we're using. So let's start with our foundations. And we're going to talk about this ripple effect. I know I love that term and it's used in lots of ways, but today we're going to talk about that in terms of thinking about your organizational mission and connection and alignment of program structures and youth activities and how those evaluation tools get better and better with that strength there. So first and foremost, talking about your organization, hopefully you have a specific niche and something you're doing in your community or area of work. And when I say that, I mean, yes, to EYC's programming, social justice programming, substance use programming, there's definitely related to your grants, but it also should be in relationship to your mission, vision, framework, and of what you do, what you don't do, what you lean on partners for, and getting as specific as possible with that so that you're clear on your program goals. A next part is thinking about how your approaches align with your philosophy and models. So I love doing logic models. I don't like the term, probably nobody does, but really just mapping out your activities and what you do in your work and what kind of you want to achieve by those activities is the simplistic way of thinking about that. Similarly, ripple effect mapping can be a tool to help you figure out what approaches align with your philosophy as well. Thinking about core issues, core things you're addressing. Sometimes we want to do that to really narrow down what specifically you're doing in your program or organization. But I like doing logic modeling to open up the strengths as well as the core issues in there to think about programs as well. For one of the organizations that I worked with, specifically my last organization in LASE Chicago, we had programs that the community itself, there was high violence. And a big focus of all of our programs and initiatives, whether it be youth programs, family, gardening programs, was thinking about social emotional learning and trauma-informed practices as an example, which is something we wove into things across our organization and our approaches in our programs. So that's an example of really thinking about that aligning with your mission. The gaps addressing gaps and addressing strengths is really important as well. Specific things that you want to connect to your programs and your model. I don't know if you've ever been in the position where you have a funding situation or with your program mission, you're talking about these impacts, like we're going to end poverty. We're gonna stop this in the community. We're, big, strong statements. I know some organizations have those. Those are great, but really thinking about what specifically you're addressing within that big issue, that big thing you're doing with youth in the community is really helpful to really narrow down your goals too. And when I say that, it's also thinking about specific things that are in your model. So if you're doing an example of doing a mentorship, like maybe you can do mentorship, relationship building. Part of your model may be building youth leadership skills, seeing their strengths, but also addressing issues. There's not enough mentors in the community. That's something in doing a logic model, doing a mapping out of your program goals and what you're addressing really helps to hone in on what you do, what you don't do, what the strengths of your community and youth are, where there are gaps to address as well. And then finally, talking about really picking relevant evaluation tools that gather the type of data that you want to match and to your logic model and what really helps to tell a story of the work. I always say that more importantly, because sometimes in your logic model, sometimes in a map of like, here's what we do, here's what we hope comes from what we do. Some of those, not all those things need to be measured. Some of them are just part of your model, and some of them maybe there are some metrics to report for grants, but maybe it's not the key metrics or part of your evaluation design that you're really focusing on. So we're going to talk about that in a minute as well. It has to feel relevant to people's experiences in your program. Let's move to the next slide. So let's talk about some key components for strong social justice youth programs. So first and foremost, as we're talking about the clear mission alignment, if your programs aren't aligned to the mission, they can easily get off track. I don't know how many of you, by raise of hand or maybe just nod to me, or have gotten into a place where sometimes you're doing activities in your programs that go way beyond initial scope of what you think you should be doing or can do. Yeah, I've been there. Doing too much outside, maybe your budget, your activities all of a sudden got off track. And I think that these kind of tools can help with that, to really think about what's aligned with your mission and where your niche is too. Oh, did somebody have a raised hand, or that was just a like, yes, it's me? Yes. Okay. Someone was agreeing with me. Or did you want to cut off mute? Sorry, was that John?
Total agreement, no worries.
Okay.
Yeah, please keep going. Yeah.
Sorry to call you out, John. Thank you. Yes, you can definitely get outside of scope. So making sure that your philosophy and your approach, your connection to the things that you do in your organization is really important. I know I've done logic models where I've started as an organization, but then paused because each program really had its own thing going, and we needed to start with, let's go through each initiative, each program, and really think about how it aligns with our organizational mission, then come back together. So there's different ways to do that, but yes, definitely, because oftentimes in social justice work, in working in nonprofits and communities, you can get outside of what you intended to do. And part of that is just being good at what we do too, right? Because we're serving kids, we're serving the families, we're serving the community and the schools sometimes. The other thing to think about is the connection to different types of programs and initiatives in your program in service of that mission, and connection to maybe youth programs, especially if you're a nonprofit that does more than youth programs too. So thinking about that will help you lead to strong data collection tools and alignment that are complementary. Really, another point is defining your program, your frameworks, and models. And when I say that, we're going to look at a couple examples right now, just to look at different types of frameworks, approaches to youth development models that can really help to guide your logic model and mapping out too. So one example is this from California's Prop 64 Youth Education and Prevention example, and we'll put that in the chat too. Thank you, Eve. Eve is so fast. She's so good. And this is a great example because this is also in alignment with the EYC addressing substance use prevention. And it identifies in here, you'll see a little bit, these 5 components to really build your program structure around substance use prevention. And so it gives some examples of their acknowledging healing as a starting point, incorporating robust, a focus on strengthening community environments. That's just a couple. And I always encourage folks to look at different frameworks and approaches, but make sure to see what resonates with you and your organization and your community and what you do, to gather some ideas. So one of the examples in here is also an organization then that took these 5 key components, Inglewood Social Justice Learning Institute, and I wonder if they're here, actually. I don't know. This is in California. So if you are, please let us know. But this organization further defined their program categories and built specifically on their niche and their implementation based on these best practices. And then I just love it because it gives examples of then how you can create clear metrics then too, and tools to align with that. So one thing that they do in there, it's further down a little bit, Eve, if you could just, oh, it's on the right-hand side. I'm sorry. You're right. So one of them is looking at community.
I'm sorry? Okay.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. One of them is looking at community change and their leadership program, but you can see in there some of their metrics and some of their way of describing their program, which really centered on these key 5 components and then grew their metrics and the way they describe their program. So I'll let you look at that on your own afterwards, but it was a really great example. Also, when clarifying your mission, vision, and models for youth programs, another great example is in Logic Model that I want to draw your attention to is Elevate Youth. They have one here too. And I love using different logic models when I build them for the organizations that I've worked with in youth programming as an example and something to build off of. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. If this is your funding and your program, you can use this language, these things to help build your own logic model that incorporates this, of course, because it's your funding and in alignment, hopefully, with what you do. That's why you applied and have this funding. But something to build off here too. And the second page of it, I don't know if you can scroll to it, has these core areas of what they do. And this is something that I would align with your mission and build upon as well. I love visuals with that too, with logic models. And you can redo a logic model, address a logic model, and a mapping out anytime. If the program's been there 15 years or you're just beginning, anytime to help strengthen and clarify what you do. Let's go back to the presentation. And now we're going to, before I go into looking at another example, looking at the California standards, I want to ask, can anyone put in the chat any frameworks or models or approaches that they use in their work, whether it be social emotional learning, trauma-informed practice? If you have a link handy to a model that you use or you like to do, I'm going to look at the chat here and see if anyone puts community cultural wealth. Love that. Ooh, low barrier programming. Kevin, if you feel okay coming off mute, I'd love to hear about what that is.
So basically, it's just the idea that for some youth, we need to just really make it almost very easy for them to join. So we don't require a lot in the very beginning. Anybody can attend a meeting. You can, if you have to come late, leave early. There's not a lot of requirements. And basically, and the more involved you get, the more you want to be in a leadership position, it's obviously higher barriers and more requirements for that. So it's kind of the philosophy.
I love that. I've never heard of that. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing. Trauma-informed practice, accessibility. I love these. There's lots of different empowerment, harm reduction, using the arts. Some people create their own new models, right? Based on some of these things as well. And we're going to explore a few more here. Thank you. Advocacy art. Ooh, that sounds cool. Positive youth development. Thank you. That's awesome. Continue to put those in, and I'm going to navigate quick to, or Eve's going to help me navigate to the California Quality Learning Standards. By show of hands, how many have seen these, heard of these? Through the California Network? I think it's called. Oh, I got a hand clap. Okay, got some. I can't see everyone, but yes. So I think looking at frameworks, looking at models, but also we have within California, Illinois has this as well. We have an Illinois standards for youth development program or out of school time programming. I think we call it, you guys call it expanded learning. So these standards is a great guide for building program structures and tools because it's foundational, research-based standards, tools for positive youth development, best practices, which there is the National After School Association as well, and lots of resources and research to really put a foundation to this. So some of those examples you can see on one side is point of service, and some are program quality standards. The point of service has great examples that, skill building, from active listening to looking at diversity, looking at healthy choices and behaviors, to overarching program is like we're talking about clear mission, vision, partnerships, looking at staff development, looking at sustainability. So this is a great and extensive tool. And there's like a cheat sheet executive summary on this of like, let's try the first 10, and then let's go into, I think there might be close to 40 standards. But this is a nice tool and baseline to start thinking about what you have structured in your program. And there's an assessment tool to kind of rate yourself on these things as well. I've done this with my staff with the Illinois tool. Great foundational thing to look at your program practices as well. So let's go back to our presentation. And now thinking about some more overarching structures then, even from that, to build your program strength, let's look at a few of these key components. And some of these components have come from that resource that's linked in here, and you guys will receive this Think Ready toolkit from AIR, which I think is a great tool as well, assessment tool that looks at your program structures. But thinking about what kind of first and foremost policies, procedures, practices you have involving culturally responsive, healing-centered, or trauma-informed things for the type of programs you guys are granted to do is a really great thing to concentrate and look at. This could be built into the way you do your program flow. So how do we think about that on the program level? Maybe it's the way you structure your programs from beginning to end. Like, do we open up in this way in the program and engage youth and center them, to how do we engage youth in leadership, talking about these things or approaching them from youth to youth or adult to youth in the program, to staff training on these things. So that's a really great examples of paying attention to those things as a foundation for your program. Staff training and development. Do you have a PD plan? Do you have time for staff to reflect with each other and talk about best practices? Look at onboarding staff practices in your program. And that actually is really heavily leaned into in the California tool. Budget alignment with program goals. This is kind of thinking about where we hone in on what we do and what we don't do. That can help as well as really planning that with your staff and making sure your goals are aligned to your compliance requirements as well. I don't know about you, but I've been there where I'm like, we dream big, but we have to do this. This is the meet first to meet our goals and to meet our grant compliance, and then we can see what we have left over, but that's really important as well. And then compliance and infrastructure, which can be what I've done with my programs, have been mapping out what our compliance is for our grants and looking at it against some of the evaluation tools and structures of where we collect that information. Sometimes our staff don't understand why we got to collect things, how those things relate to our program goals. And I really encourage you, and I have this in some of the resources to this presentation, of mapping that out to really connect folks to the metrics that we're collecting and the tools and evaluation, but also how it relates to our compliance, and it's important. Another note from EYC is that funders, as required, as a funder, partners are required to report on your progress to the center biannually. So I would take what you have to do for EYC, but also any other grants that you have and map it out against your program goals. I think that's really helpful to see how it all connects. Next slide. Okay, so for an activity to take home, because we're gonna do a different activity here soon together. But for this take home with your staff, I want to encourage you to examine the foundations we just talked about with your team, because let's be honest, even if you've been doing youth work, I've been at organizations for like my last one, I was there almost 8 years, you know, we were still working on adapting program structures, especially with transitions of staff and the pandemic. That was a big one. You can't do everything at once. And some of those assessment tools can seem overwhelming. So I encourage you to look at and assess those areas and just pick, you know, each year a couple things to work on and prioritize, like how are we in our program structure when it comes to staff development, let's say, to professional development, to youth-led opportunities. So let's take a look quick at a resource guide I put together. Eve, if you would navigate us there, thank you. And actually it's the other one. There we go. So the things that I talked about, mission alignment, youth development practices, program framework, your staff development. I just picked a few of those things for you to think about with your team. Are we emergent? Are we developing, proficient, or exemplary? And put some kind of examples in there, thinking about where you'd like to work on and where your strengths are. And thinking about that, let's go back to the presentation. I put some questions in there, and this is in your resource guide that we'll send you, is also think about what contributed in the middle there, thinking about what contributed to the success, what challenges hinder growth in that area, and what strategies might address those challenges. So in thinking about that, I'm going to take a moment to ask, and maybe actually, Eve, if you can navigate back to that worksheet, thinking about mission alignment, youth development principles, program framework, staff development. Can anyone take a moment to share where maybe they're particularly strong on and what has helped them to get there? Rather than deficit, let's talk about where you feel like you're kicking butt. You're like doing well.
I can share. Is my mic working?
Yes. Is it Paris?
Yay. Yes, it is. And my camera's broken. So I'm here looking and smiling at all of you. I would say our strength is in mission alignment. Hold on, I'm going up to it. Yeah, the mission alignment. Our mission is to connect people to power, and power, the dictionary definition of power is something or to make someone act or respond in a certain way. And so with this work, particularly with our work, working with our youth, our first mission is the knowledge, connecting them to knowledge. And so we work with them on who is your audience, who are you talking to, what do you want them to know, and what do you want them to do? And so in our mission of connecting people to power, they're able to, are you hearing me? It says my internet's unstable.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, good. But yeah, in our mission, that's what it's all about, is how do we connect our youth, number one, to the power of their voice? And then number two, how do we connect them to the ability to make someone respond to what it is to the message that they're delivering?
And how do you feel your program activities come out in that?
That's it. That's what the activity is. It's really, they feel the programs come out wonderful because our youth know immediately when they start out, what do you want someone to do based on this activity? At the outcome of the activity, what are you hoping to gain from it? What are you hoping that the person that you're attempting to move, to do something, to respond, to feel? So they know when we go into the activities, they know, okay, what do we want this person to feel? or what do we want them to do? Sometimes our messages are, we want them to put down their substance that they're misusing. Other times we want them to feel loved and valued by the message that we're relaying to them. And sometimes we want them to feel connected, connected that they're not alone. So in our mission of connecting people to power and the ability to make someone feel something, our programs are aligned with that. What's the outcome? And our teams, we talk about that at the beginning of the whatever project we're working on. What is the outcome of this? What do you need them to do? And so it works even in our videos and our messaging. Sometimes they'll mess it, like we'll have activities where they watch a video, a moving video, and then they have to respond, and the messaging that they respond would be to, we're going to write messages to grandparents who've lost their children, and that connects them to the empathetic side of the work, learning empathy skills and developing.
I love that. Thank you so much. That sounds amazing.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I think too, gosh, when youth feel that and know what your activity to your program, to your mission, and the different things that they can be involved with whatever you do, really helps when it comes to how you're asking questions and measuring things when it comes to evaluation, because then they're like, I felt that in the program. That resonates me. That language was used often in the program, and connecting to the results and wanting to see the results then too, and examine that together. So thank you so much. That was awesome. All right, moving back to our presentation. So let's move to our second part, talking about evaluation, aligning your evaluation tools. If you have this really mission-centered work, let's talk about what helps with effective evaluation design. So some of these things is making sure that when you create your evaluation design and your alignment, it is in alignment with grant requirements, because you have to collect data and you have to report on those too. I know that it's great to start with a logic model that is mission driven and aligned, but looking at it against what we're required to do, and then the broader scope of what we do as an organization is really healthy. Thinking about cultural responsiveness and youth-centered approaches in evaluation, that is a best practice for me as an evaluator. I would highly encourage everyone to do that, and I think this grant does as well. Also thinking about practical implementation and considerations of what is, when thinking about matching up what type of evaluation tools we want to do, not to get overburdensome on folks. It can be very easy, especially if you have very stringent grant reporting requirements, to get heavy on evaluation tools. And you want to do some mixed methods, some quantitative, some qualitative things. We can get a little overambitious sometimes, and that can be very hard to implement, as well as hard on the participants. So that's something to think about as well. And a reflection of program goals and organizational mission. We thought we talked about that. And with mixed method, we're going to talk a minute about some different tools to think about and to do within your program as well. A reminder that a TOC, a theory of change, logic model, is really helpful to make sure that all of your programs align with your mission, but also helps us think beyond the grants that fund us to organizational mission too, to think about making sure that's included, but also, is it a full picture of what you do and how you do it, as Paris was talking about too. A strong TOC or a logic model can think about what you need to do and what you want to do in terms of collection of data in your evaluation design. And that's why I always say to start out with that and to map things out from there. Giving you an example of a very youth-led way of doing this, mapping out your evaluation design. Eve, if you could put in the youth leadership participatory practice link, and that one, we're not going to navigate there, sorry. We're just going to give you that. That is a really cool way to develop a youth advisory to help you implement and create an evaluation plan as well. I really love that tool, and there's some ways and some questions to think about your evaluation plan in diverse ways. Okay, next we're going to talk about some evaluation tools themselves. Here's just a couple examples. Now, the reason why I didn't go deep into this is because we're going to put a link in the chat, and this is, of course, in the presentation. There was a prior webinar all on, and there's been multiple actually that the center has offered on youth outcomes and data collection and different types of tools, quantitative, qualitative. Here, just thinking about this chart, the resources listed for pre-post surveys, observational protocols and tools, interview guides. I know a lot of folks do collect quotes and things as well as far as evaluation tools to describe the impact of their program. Youth self-assessing themselves is a great way as well. And then program structure quality tools, like we talked about the CAN network tool as well, is really helpful, and different ways to evaluate programs and tools to implement. We're going to talk about in particular today the YPQI tool, which we'll go into in a minute as well. Let's actually move there for time's sake. So by raise of hands, have anyone heard of or is implementing YPQI? Just to get a sense. Have you heard of Youth Program Quality Intervention? Youth Program Quality Assessment, it's called as well, YPQA or YPQI. Am I getting any hand raises, or is this new? Oh, it must be kind of new for y'all. Oh, wait, Marvin says yes. New, okay, great. Ooh, I am passionate about this one. This is a great example of a evaluation tool. So looking at YPQA as a structure for your program, and this is a positive youth development tool. And when I tell you, like, I was doing youth development work for years, and when I saw this, I was like, there are names to this. There are whole workshops and applications and approaches, and it just blew my mind. Thinking about all the structures and the things involved in youth programs, and then best practices in them. So you look, it kind of looks like Maslow hierarchy of needs, and thinking about building from the bottom, a safe environment for youth, active participatory approaches, structure, to looking at supportive environment, active learning, ask, listen, encourage, reframing conflicts, to an interactive environment, looking at those adult to youth and youth to youth relationships, building community, to an engaging environment of our youth planning, our youth leading, our youth reflecting in the program. And are we just supporting, or as somebody said in the chat earlier, working alongside youth? So this is a simplistic way of looking at it, and there are workshops within this model and this program for staff. There's observational tools, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about what that looks like and how I implemented that at a few of my programs. If we can go back to the slide, there we go. So this intervention assessment is really looking about your overall structure of your program. So this, and it's based on best practices in youth development. And what I love about this tool, it does have some modules on like social emotional learning and trauma-informed approaches. It really teaches a culture of evaluation and assessment tools. The link that we're giving you there in the pyramid, you'll see you have to just put in your email, by the way, and it will allow you to download the tools to look at them. You're just signing in and putting your email. So this assessment and tool is really looking at building that culture of evaluation and continuous improvement, and developing some policy standards for youth development practice, but also engaging multiple stakeholders in it. Your youth, your staff, your parents, partners can get involved with this. I've done this with community schools advisory boards. And it can be tied to a kind of a year-long timeline of when you're going to collect data and how you're going to do this in your program. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Next slide. So this tool engages staff, youth, again, partners, and it looks at it from a multi-pronged stakeholder approach of, and the observational tools, you can have staff, say you have different locations, you can have staff from one location go to another location and observe programs. It teaches you how to take observation notes and look at, best practices. So an example is you can have your staff, you can have a youth, both look at some of these standards and like, okay, are youth leading everything, or are youth leading majority of things, or are adults? And the adult and a staff member will assess, but also a youth will assess. And they can self-assess as well. So I love this, that it looks at kind of multi-stakeholder and perspectives, and then you kind of look at your results afterwards. Next slide. So the process really looks at assessing the quality, planning improvements, training staff, and implementing changes, kind of that continuous improvement circle. It has training modules, and it continuously looks at each year developing kind of a next step goals to increase your scores, if you will, in the assessment tool as well. Next slide. So one thing that I love doing this with my team is that we had to look at it against our other grant compliance stuff and our other tools we were doing and integrating it together. But it really allowed us to step outside of what grants require and think about positive youth development in a mission vision way to what we do. So for example, at a program I ran 26 schools at Family Focus in Chicago. And for that, it was 26 different schools, different, how principals have their different things going on and their mission. And what it allowed for us to do is really take our strength-based approach and our mission alignment to look at these positive youth development practices and really score all of us on it and engage our school partners in it too. It let us identify where we needed to grow, but also our strengths. And it honestly became something that at first was a little bit of a heavy lift, but once we got it as part of a schedule that we did throughout our school year and we based it on our school year, it was really great. And we got to see the impacts grow. Okay. So now we're gonna, sorry, I lost my notes. I got passionate about it for a minute. Now we're gonna think about, we're gonna actually do an activity. So I'm gonna ask for your engagement. I'm warning you. To think about, we're gonna think about the evaluation tools we have right now in your programs and how that aligns with some of the reporting requirements for EYC and kind of where we're at with that. So I'm drawing your attention to a resource guide that we created for you with some of these tools from today. And looking at that, there's some areas of EYC that you report on, if you didn't remember. Youth engagement metrics. Here are some of the metrics you can see in front of you. Some of the quantitative and qualitative metrics are in here. Can you make that a little bit bigger? Oh no, my eyes. Sorry, thank you, Eve. Beautiful. Ooh. Okay, so we have some youth engagement metrics. Activity implementation. Can you go a little slower? So like number of activities to conducted, mentorship relationship, and then progress towards goals. That's another area where you describe more qualitatively. And then successes and challenges. And there's this is coming straight from the EYC reporting tool. So I want to take a minute with the Mentimeter. If you want to, Eve put the link to this in the chat, to think about how you would rate yourself and your organization in these. I think we have 4 areas if you go into the Mentimeter. And if you would go ahead and take a moment to look at that resource guide, think about those areas and the type of metrics you're collecting, and rate how you feel you're able to report on these. How confident are you, from most confident to 1 to least confident to 4. Doesn't mean you're least, like, if you're feeling confident on everything, just rate what comes out the most. The highest is 1. And this is related to how you feel you're able to answer those questions, as well as the evaluation tools you have to help answer those. Let me know if you have a problem with the link. Oh, it looks like we have people in there. Good. All right, activity inflammation is the strongest. All right. Looks like we got a little bit of a tie in 3rd and 4th place. I'm gonna give you guys a little more time to answer that one. We're having a little rain wind storm in Chicago. Let me know if I'm cutting out on you at all. Okay. Successes and challenges looks like it's winning as 4th as far as least. We're going to take the least confident and we're going to talk about that in our activity right now. All right. So we're going to talk about successes and challenges. And we're going to map out together in this space. We're not going to go into breakout rooms. That is one of the EYC reporting requirements. And actually, Eve, if you can navigate to that worksheet so we can look at the metrics listed under there, just real quick, if you would, that it's in our resource guide that we were just looking at. Beautiful. So what we have in there is describing your successes during this reporting period and the main operational and/or programmatic challenges affecting this progress. Thank you, Eve. We can go back to the slide. So let's think about, in terms of the current evaluation tools you might be using to collect that information, successes and challenges. Can anyone share via chat what tools you feel like you're using to collect that? And if somebody feels brave to come off mute and help share, that would be wonderful too. Successes and challenges. Does that just come from your brain? I know sometimes that's the case, especially for a qualitative answer. What kind of tools or how do you capture that information? Or what type of things do you report on when you talk about successes and challenges? Okay. Pre-post tests about workshop delivery. Okay. So some of them are talking about the actual program success and challenges. The one thing is, the successes and challenges is more broad in the way they're describing it. It could be about programmatic, it could be operational or anything. And it does say affecting progress sometimes too. I just wanted to look at that language real quick. Testimonials, participation or attendance. Can anyone come off mute and describe any of these that they use? Especially if you're getting testimonials, like how do you structure that? Or do you take notes or have staff like write down quotes? Do you talk about it with your staff to gather information for this metric? What does that look like? Oh, sir, directly asking youth what they need? or want? These are great. Goal tracking. Tracking attendance. Attendance. Okay, don't be shy. Anyone want to describe what their tool looks like or what their process looks like even? Or some of the content that they put in that metric?
I
An
can
exa-
share briefly.
Thank you.
For us, we had the students present to their staff, which was pretty great. And then afterwards, the staff were given a little note card to put like, you know, feedback, how they took the presentation, what they liked. And so that was really helpful just to hear back from each individual staff member in that regard. You know, and it was on a tangible like note card, so we could actually like, you know, get their right, you know, get their actual feedback right directly from the presentation.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you so much. Stephanie, was it? Stephanie, thank you. Anyone else want to share about a tool or a way that they collect that information? Listening sessions. Yep. Video interviews. Hopefully there's some, there can be some tools for recording and AI to help with some of those things too. Document notes. All right. Let's move on to thinking about how does this metric and these tools align with our mission? I know this one is like really getting authentic feedback, right, about what our challenges, what our successes. I know sometimes when I report on that for programs too in grants, I talk about layers. I talk about our staff challenges or successes to the youth programs themselves. There's different layers, operational, it's said in there, like has there been transitions, turnover, some of those things as well. But how does that metric in and of itself align with your goals or your organization mission? Anyone want to come off mute and share? Or how do you think it could more align with your organizational mission? That one's a little bit difficult, but can I ask, organizationally, do you have practices of sharing successes and challenges in certain settings with youth, with staff? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I could jump in again. For us, when we are looking at our successes, like oftentimes we'll, you know, share with the youth, like afterwards, hey, like, how did it go for you? Like, what was your, you know, what did you think? Stuff like that, which is really helpful. And then internally as a staff, like maybe like a program staff will like send out a general email to the entire staff with pictures and I guess like a breakdown of how the event went and just how it was taken in by participants and community, which is really great to see. I think the photos really help, you know, really bring out like what it was like. And then if we have the capacity, we'll reach out to like our marketing director and say, hey, can you post this on social media? Like this would be really great to flag. So I guess like there's multiple layers in which we really like share out like our successes and the impact that it's made in our community.
That's great. Thank you. Stephanie, you get extra points today, coming off mute twice. Thank you. That's a great example. Also, you know, I think about this in terms of alignment with mission. Well, let's move on actually the next one, talking about gaps too with doing this. Sometimes you can go straight to successes or challenges in youth programs, which I love. I love you're giving examples in here. I'm reading in the chat too of not over surveying young people, different ways of gathering this information, to videos, to writing down some quotes, to practices in your programs. But also, you know, when reporting to a funder about some of the successes and challenges, I like to give an idea of the structural things we're working on, but also related to our goals, related to the goals of the programs, and growth, just looking at it from a strength-based, like, here's our next step, you know, like, here's what we're doing. I love Paris, you're winning it today too. Failing versus not trying at all. We call it failing forward. I love that. Can be viewed as success. Yeah, but I think sometimes it's important for the funder too to kind of hear from what you're working on structurally related to your program goals, but also some of that feedback from those specific evaluation tools is nice as well, right? That's what we're leaning in. Let's move on to potential. So anything that you, based on this and what are people that gave some examples, is there any new or modified tools or things that you, and these examples in the chat, that you would consider using to kind of get better at reporting on this or collecting data and information on this? Anyone gained something today or some ideas in here of what you weren't doing that you could maybe try doing to talk about successes and challenges?
You don't mind me adding something? I never even thought about doing testimonials, to be honest. I was huge on like data and statistics and numbers, given I'm a spreadsheets girly, but and so like we do a lot of like pre-evaluations, post-evaluations and things like that. But the testimonials was definitely something that's like a huge takeaway, because there's some things that aren't quite quantifiable.
Yes, most definitely. I've taken notes from staff meetings over time, even too, not just like some of the tools we use with youth, but like I said, like structural things we're working on too. Anyone else want to share?
I'll share it. Girls Club LA. In the past, we've done focus groups, and those were really insightful because there was a two-part. There was a pen and paper type of survey, and then this actual interviews, which were done where we brought in an outsider to actually interact with the youth so they wouldn't be built-in bias by the current staff. It was very insightful. Yeah, it was helpful because it didn't always align with the paper survey. It was more in-depth storytelling and seemed to be more authentic, not trying to please people. Yeah.
No, that's great. That authentic feedback is so important. And I like how you mentioned too, like having the objectivity of maybe another staff member, outsider, help to gather that information too.
Yeah, we brought in a consultant. Yeah.
Nice. Anyone else? I think also, you know, identifying successes and challenges. I know some of you mentioned the tools that you do, which may not be done maybe pre-post or mid, but thinking about regularly in your program as a reflection question or something your staff could document at the end of an activity. More iterative approaches to collecting that information could be helpful as well. Like I said, I've gotten partner surveys or just even from meeting with partners to ask like, how are we doing? How's the program being impactful, or what has been some challenges structurally? But again, those layers, we're not just talking about one layer. We can talk about how's our partnerships going? How's our program development going? How's our staff doing with their development? So there's different ways to meet to include in that narrative and that metric. All right. Thank you for your contributions. Now we're going to end this with talking about using that data for strong narratives and reporting, kind of looking at some other ideas, how to kind of answer those EYC reporting areas and whatever grant reporting you have to enhance that quantitative and qualitative reporting that you have to do. So thinking about strong narratives for grant reports, and I've had city, state, federal, private grants reporting on, some of which have been very stringent, some just give us a narrative of what you've been doing. Giving people context to where you are at as an organization, if you have that ability in your tool, is always really great. I think important to talk about where you're at with your organization, how it's affecting your programs and your growth, and to be able to kind of talk about how you're continuously growing and addressing things. I think funders can understand that too. We all have things that we're growing on. Really looking at key program activities and initiatives implemented, thinking about how it relates to that grant's goals, but also all the multiple initiatives and the things that you're doing. Sometimes it's just not a program. It's an advocacy aspect. It's a partnership aspect. There are lots of aspects to your programs. Results from your implementation. So we tried this worked, this didn't. Sometimes that can be a very powerful story narrative as well. What's influencing or impacting kind of those external factors are really important too, to thinking about it. And then again, coming from a strength-based way, just lessons learned and considerations and what you're doing to address things. I think equally putting in the strengths and where you're, you know, exemplary and doing what you're doing, but also like how you're growing the things that you're working on as well. So here's some examples actually and they're coming from a lot of these different examples for putting in your reporting come from the EYC annual report has some great examples too of this and how they gather from all of you. So I love some quotes. Quotes are wonderful, whether it come from your videos, your focus groups, your staff writing down a quote from a youth or from a staff member. But this one, it felt nice not to have to hide myself. I have developed friendships here that will last a lifetime. Quotes that relate to your outcomes in your program or your goals as well. If your goal was, I'm really to develop caring relationships, youth mentorship, this would be a great quote to really support that metric. Next one. Here's another one, Boyle Heights. I don't know if some of these partners are here. I would love it if I'm like giving you flowers in here, but using youth voices and quotes. Boyle Heights has motivated me to major in journalism once I get to college. Because of the program, I feel confident in my writing, reporting, and interviewing skills. Really powerful storytelling through these quotes. Another aspect is thinking about how to, I think, display quantitative data effectively and differently. So thinking about looking at before-after comparisons is great. I love pre-post, but don't feel obligated to. I want to say there's a lot of power in post-reflective as well, by activity or by program. You don't have to wait till the end of the program, but just saying, you know, how did we do, and being reflective and questions like that can be really powerful. Thinking about infographics and other ways to illustrate complex relationships and things happening. I put some tools in the end of this presentation for that too. One of the things that I like to look at is tools like, and I'm going to have Eve navigate to one of them from DataViz. When I think about displaying bar charts, graphs, and different things, this is a kind of cool website that helps you think about how to display data in different ways and in different methods. And I like kind of clicking through and seeing how it's dynamic and different. And there's some free trial things too to try with this as well. Let's go back to the presentation, and also thinking about multiple levels of looking at things at the individual program and community level, presenting data in that way. I love talking about partnerships, how we've increased partnerships in our program, the depth of our partnerships. I don't know if you ever talked about leveraged funds. So how, you know, these partnerships have grown resources, whether it be in financial or other contribution resources. Quantitative data too, looking at year-to-year comparisons, and from beginning to end of, like, so let's say you're going on a school year journey, that can be helpful as well. All right. Connecting our outcomes to mission and grant goals. That's always very important, I think, too, in talking about reporting and what funders want to see. Highlighting systems level change can be really impactful too. So I want to draw your attention to the middle part of this slide is creating, what I've done in my programs is create a crosswalk table of activities to grant goals or objectives. So we have our own program goals, we have grant goals, and we have our activities. Again, sometimes it's connecting, why do we do this? What is this related to? And kind of mapping that out can really help you and your staff understand how this fits into reporting and actually the tools as well that you're using together. So one survey tool can help answer questions on 5 program goals, potentially. And we use a lot of that data from multiple parts of what we report on. Using your theory of change or your models, how to describe your activities and how they're connecting to outcomes. So I heard a lot of those stories in here today of how what you're doing, your activity connects to your mission, but also to your outcomes of your program. Showing how your work addresses root causes identified within your mission or community. So community level data, showing how your work is connecting to all of those layers. And this quote is a really great example of that, I think. How Hopeful Encounter engaged, not only here's the raw number of people, youth that was served, but what they were served doing, training programs, writing, social media, and increasing the awareness of substance use and prevention and public speaking abilities and confidence. So there's lots of like sprinkles in there of different types of data, but also how it's connecting to what they do as an organization. Let's move to the next one. And then highlighting both achievements and growth areas. I'm just overemphasizing this throughout, is that thinking about not only your evaluation results and diving in depth there, but also the program structures and all the things and the aspects of your program. I love to encourage everyone, in many of the nonprofits I've worked in, even if it's youth programs is one aspect of what we do, there's leadership development, there could be family-oriented things, other aspects that connect to your youth programs that are really important, that impact your goals and are part of your model. And those are great things to bring to your reporting as well, is to talk about your holistic approach, but also models within your organization. I like to share how previous evaluation findings informed improvements too. Like if we're not doing anything with that data, why are we collecting it? I always say that. We go to our tools on a yearly basis and say, are we using every single question? Seriously. Are we using this data? Are we bringing it back to youth? Are we using it for our grant reporting? Because if you're not, you can just get over exorbitant in that as well. But going back to this is thinking about how you're framing things as well. Challenges to being opportunities for innovation or next steps. Sharing, again, how you're improving programs based on adaptations, what you're learning. How those adaptations were made in response to the feedback. And also lessons learned and future changes in your evaluation tools are planned based on what you found. Sometimes what you find is we're doing great. This question always gets a 100% yes on it, on that, say that question or that tool. We're always getting positive feedback. That's wonderful. You're probably doing a great job, but maybe you need to ask deeper questions or try a different method and a different tool as well, to be able to report in a deep way and tell a compelling story too. I think our programs change and we have to think about changing our evaluation tools to match how they pivot. And we're pivoting a lot in this world right now with what's going on. So sometimes relooking at that theory of change, that logic model, but also how you're reporting, what you're reporting, and changing your evaluation tools as well. Okay. I think I flew through some things. Before we wrap up and talk about the next steps and the resources here, is there anything from talking about how you're reporting, what you're reporting within your evaluation tools that you feel like you want to grow? Let's talk about on how you're reporting your data. Tools you want to explore or the way that you're reporting their data.
I really like what you brought up about not just pre and post, but like post reflective. I don't remember exactly the term you used, but just this idea that like it doesn't have to be immediately after, but that after a period of time to have a reflection section. I really like that idea.
And that could be daily in your programs too. But I think what, especially as an evaluator, I love pre-post. We love validated tools and things of this sort. But I've often, especially doing community-based work, have created tools based on pieces of validated tools. Of course, it doesn't make your tool validated anymore if you're, grabbing from different resources. However, I do that because a lot of the tools and questions I create, I pressure test with youth. And I'd rather than going straight towards validated instruments all the time and things that have been more generically developed, I want to make sure it resonates with my programs, my mission, my youth, and my community, and thinking about it in a culturally responsive way. So that's why I always encourage, those tools are great. There's a lot of tools that are on SEL that have all the aspects of and the frameworks, but you really got to tweak and tone it to what you need in your program and what will resonate with folks and align with your goals. I've walked into organizations where surveys have become, I know we say we over survey people, right? And youth, but also really long and exhaustive. And the questions don't resonate with what you're doing in your program. So that's why I like to look at multi-layer approaches to collecting information and using tools to what can we do on a regular basis in our programs, to what can we do post at the end of the program, different aspects to collect information, most definitely. And those questions, when you develop post-reflective, can really be like thinking of the last 6 months. You could put time-sensitive things on those, but also you can really think about, here was our beginning goals. How have we done on those things? Thinking back. Then pre-post really lines a lot with very structured and programs, I think, more than if you're tweaking things often too. Anyone else thinking about some of their evaluation tools and the way they report information for grants? I think we have a couple more minutes. Oh, I'm just looking in the chat, sorry. Oh, I love that. Stephanie, you're getting an A+ today. Your own quotes from your staff and creating a safe and supportive environment. Powerful. Yes. Crane. Making sure your measurement methods make sense given the way the portal questions are designed. Yeah. All right. Anyone else want to share? All right. Well, thank you for adding in the chat. And our next steps are, we're putting the link in here too for technical assistance. I have an opening slot Monday, I believe, on that TA sign up sheet for Mirror Group. If you'd like to sign up, we're going to look at further ways we can support in the next couple months, hopefully with some more TA sessions. And it could be on these topics based on our workshop today, or but also if you just want to talk about structuring your program in general ways for making good evaluation tools and design, please sign up and reach out. We'll put our email is definitely in the presentation as well. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for your contributions and being here. And we'll see you in the spaces.